Welcome to lunchtime. It's the Power Lunch on LinkedIn Live, and I'm Rhett Power, your host. I'll be doing this program. I do this program every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday around 12 noon, and with the technology gods permitting. And this program's the whole point of this program is to talk to CEOs, business leaders, thought leaders, authors, best-selling authors, to sort of pick their brain to get the habits that make them successful so that we can all get better. We can learn from them. Now, the fun part is the show can be interactive. The only way that happens, though, is if you ask questions. So shoot us a question on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. We'll try to get to it during the show. If we can't get to it during the show, I know my guest today will collaborate with me to answer those questions on those platforms. I know that she will. She's good like that. Now, my promise to you is to bring you the very best people to talk to. Today is no exception. I've got Cheryl Bear. Now, Cheryl is interesting in so many, many ways. Former head of talent at ABC, senior VP of comedy at Fox, worked on projects. You should have seen how we got together on the 5 minutes before the show. That's been really funny. She's worked on projects like Sex and the City, That 70s Show, Malcolm in the Middle, The Family Guy, Roseanne, Baywatch. If you look at her IMDb page, it's a long, long, long page. Now, she is now CEO and founder of Living Pop-Ups, an augmented reality platform and media company focused on interactive episodic storytelling, which I got to figure out what that really means. Cheryl, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Rhett. Really appreciate it.
Well,
really.
How did you go from sort of this long resume in the entertainment business as working for some of the bigger houses and our production studios in the business to running your own talent agency? I mean, you're sort of a serial entrepreneur, kind of mixed in with working with the big boys or big companies. What was that journey like? How did you go from entertainment to augmented reality? I got to know.
Well, my degree was human behavior. My master's is human behavior as it relates to programming and business. And I'm 54, like the studio, and I felt like at that time, not anybody was really going into, well, there were the business side, like obviously the lawyers of show business going into law or business, but really in the creative world, there was no one. They thought of ideas and then they hoped, or you saw an artist who was like really gifted, but didn't see themselves as a franchise. And growing up in New York City, I walked on the same streets, whether you were the richest person or the poorest person. And I was fascinated with, we were all one when we jammed into that subway car. So as my master's was human behavior, it was psychology, sociology, and then I loved people's stories. I mean, you could be on a bus and somebody would start telling you where they were from, what country they were from, how they got there.
You're that person that talks to me on the airplane, aren't you?
I'm sorry, but I'm not, because then I learned so much about people, and I just love being open to people. And by having that and listening, it's been a great journey to see, I can tell people stories that relate to so many people and share it. And I like sharing. I like sharing my food. I like sharing my journey. I'm like, come on, it's going to be a fun adventure. So keeping that kind of curious mind and openness, I think, has allowed me the space to really take in the information and cultivate it in a way that went from casting. I started working in a casting office when I was 16. Mm-hmm. And I had the good fortune of having one of those like old school, like what you hear about Broadway, Danny Rose-ish kind of bosses, like, get dressed nice tomorrow, kid, you're going to run the session. And from that, I cast at 16 years old, the Bruce Springsteen video with Courtney Cox in it. And I was asked, what did I think? And as a 16-year-old, I didn't think politics. I thought from my heart and my gut, she's got the gift, right? So then being validated to trust my gut and trust my heart, I went through my journey. And by the age of 25, I had my own casting company. So talk about entrepreneurial. I literally opened up my own shingle and was doing 5 shows at a time. And that's kind of, and doing shows like In Living Color. So, from a Jim Carrey to a Jamie Foxx to a Jennifer Lopez, they were all their own franchises and their own businesses, and the the Wayans brothers, and so it was really fun, and it was a time where also people felt not afraid of being creative and taking chances, but allowing the space to take chances. So.
I got a comment online here that says you're being modest because it also says you discovered Will Smith, and Jordan Brady says you discovered Will Smith and Ashton Kutcher too.
Okay, that's my ex-husband. Love you, Jordy. Yeah. So, well, I feel like, thank you. And so I went from having my own company where he came in to audition for a part. Got, I thought, one of the best parts. We're still really close friends. And then I went to ABC where I developed around talent. So, and I remember the first.
I feel like I got to interrupt you. I feel like I'm in 5th grade. Because we're passing notes back and forth. He says, "Love you too, honey."
So, I remember the first time I saw Roseanne do stand-up, and Roseanne had done this bit about, I was pregnant with our first son. Roseanne had done this bit about seeing the Dorito under the couch for the first time, and debating the 30-second rule. And I said, okay, I'm about to be a mother. I'm certainly not blonde and in a wheat field. And I felt like what had been shown on television prior was like a very passive mother, or like a Leave It to Beaver mother. And I was like, that's more kind of how I feel like I'm going to be. First incarnation. Right. So I had a great time at ABC, and as you identify talent, it was not just stand up or artist, it was writers too. And then you would look at like, what are the kinds of stories of characters, which are people that you want to share, and how do you develop those stories? People are walking contradictions of themselves, so they say what they aspire to be, and then they always walk out into the same spots in the maze of their Pac-Man life. I wanted to share those stories, and looking at TV too was something that I looked at it like a really intimate relationship. You were in your bedroom or your living room, and you were either in your pajamas, or you were naked, or you were in your underwear. And now people use telephones, right? So they take them to the bathroom. So it's really intimate. And if you're going to make a choice to watch something, right? Yeah. I hope that you choose us. So I went from ABC to then CAA, and did, and packaged internally and developed internally before I went out and sold, and then and went to Fox. And the thing that I missed, okay, our son just told me he's on the road again. He's driving cross country. But as the thing that I loved when I did that 70s show was I grew up in the 70s, and I felt like no one was telling the truth about what teenagers were doing in the basement. And Mark Brazil and the Turners and Marcy and Tom of Carsey Warner, and Peter Roth, we talked for a long time about, okay, we had underage sex. We stole our parents' cars and went to concerts. We had keg parties, and smoked pot in the basement. How do we tell the truth with a sense of humor, but also with grace and dignity? And then I had to talk to some gentlemen in Congress and the Senate, and we came up with a PSA campaign to counterbalance it. But I felt like if we strike a chord by telling the truth, we will, so
right.
Yeah. So, and Malcolm in the Middle, I came from a family of 3, same gender. And I used to talk to Linwood Boomer about that we were same sex, same gender families. And I thought that was interesting. So, and then using technology, you were asking about how I got into living pop-ups.
Right.
Living pop-ups came because that 70s show was the first to use 360 camera work in a sitcom. Malcolm was the first to do single camera comedy with no laugh track on prime time. I'd done animation in prime time that also hadn't been done since Wait Till Your Father Got Home. And I always liked telling stories that I felt like weren't being told. Like Sex and the City was a script that had been passed on for 2 years and a book that had been passed on. And people, there were a lot of men in the business who said, I don't think people want to see single women of a certain age. And I was like, yeah. Majority of television watchers are single women of a certain age. And some of them are gay, some of them are divorced, and some of them are still single, and they're all still friends. Anyway, so it just felt natural that when we started working together, and Jamie Dixon is my partner and co-founder. And the one thing I will share, as he says, oh no, when I say I have another idea, he says I get us into trouble and he gets us out of it. And
I know how that goes. I know that relationship.
Because technologically, I challenge and I say, yes, we can. And let's prove that we use this technology with purpose, with humor, and with intelligence and grace. And if we do that, it allows the space for actually dignity of a consumer to want to watch or be curious. And so telling a narrative, I've been talking a lot.
No, that's
but he's the original hacker. He started when he was growing up in Berkeley. He was hacking from the Lawrence Berkeley labs in high school and getting a signal and making his own computer boards. Okay. And he's literally, he started making programs and he thought he was missing the boat. And he was John Lasseter's best man at his wedding. And he came up with the technology that was from black and white, Michael Jackson's black and white music video called, right. And he hacked technology to make something called morphing. And he started doing digital. Well, yeah. He was part of the troupe that started in really getting digital scanning going. And he's one of the first people I know that brought augmented reality into movies by using it, recreating Ebbets Field for the movie 42 about Jackie Robinson. So, as we're both creative and meet each other and collaborate in a really fun way, we have an openness to here's what I'm thinking. And he goes, here's what I'm thinking from that. And it just builds upon each other. And I know Jordan will appreciate this, but I raised my kids. I owned a summer camp, and the philosophy was yes and. You say yes and, not yes. No but. So
I was having a discussion about that yesterday with a coaching conversation. No is negative, and if you start conversations with that, no matter, even if you have a positive on the other side of that no, It's
still no.
still right. That's what people hear.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I'm fascinated by AR in a lot of ways. About 10 years ago, when I was in the toy business, almost 10 years ago now, we worked on a program called Dino Dan. I don't know if you remember Dino Dan. Dino Dan was a show that's produced out of Canada, and at Toy Fair in 2010, we introduced Dino Dan. Dino Dan was a program with a real life boy, but AR. It was dinosaurs and stuff. And we had this fancy AR display that we wanted to get into Toys R Us with the product line, and they wouldn't buy it. But it was this great display where not nearly as advanced as we have it today, but sort of, looking at your website and looking at some of the product you're producing, very, very similar in the sense that, you could go to the toy shelf and pick up a Dino Dan box or whatever, and you could see, if you used the phone, we had a phone that was attached to the display, you could see the pterodactyl fly over, or, you could see the T-Rex walking down the toy aisle at you. But we couldn't get them to buy it, and I wish we had, because I think it would have helped the product. But what do you see in terms of retail and the customer experience? Do you see this, the work that you're doing, do you see it really changing that?
Well, let me back up by how we use, because I appreciate that you said it was based on a TV show.
Yes.
And that you were using the toys as a product. However, if you're using the technology as a Happy Meal gimmick to that toy, it's disposable. And the one thing now execution is king. Okay. If you don't have execution, right? I heard, whether it was at ABC, whether it was at Fox, whether it was last Thursday, I hear pitches all the time where people say to me, you've never heard this before. And half of it I have, but half of it doesn't have the depth. Okay. And what I feel like has happened in AR, and what differentiates us, is we develop the characters and the stories that we use the tool, just like we would on the TV series, about compelling stories to continue additional storytelling, not just be dinosaurs flying down. When you see the piece that we did in the Natural History Museum, it's that you actually find out, or I'll give you the example of, I think on our website is also Leonardo da Vinci.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. In front of the Mona Lisa. Now, I've seen artwork where I've seen museums that are going, hey, we have an AR exhibit, and things are shooting out of a piece of art, or they've made it look like a 3D, almost like an old school, what are those?
Yeah, I know what you're talking. Yeah.
Come on, Jordan, pull out.
What is that?
Something scope, right? Or anyway.
I'll think of it tonight at 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. But what we did by taking Leonardo da Vinci, and I think this is a good example, is he comes down on a gyrocopter. He tells you, this is one of my many inventions. And most people don't know me as an inventor first. But they do know me for this piece of art. The Mona Lisa. What's her name? How did she get it? What's the colors and what's the lighting? And then he gives you human context to who he is. He's not just a thing. He actually was a multifaceted man who had many interests. And so you learn that there was depth and wisdom to this person. And then he describes the piece of art that the little plaque doesn't do justice, that a boring tour guide or an audio tour doesn't do justice. And we've now created something that's dynamic, compelling. And what I love the most is I've heard grandparents and kids alike love sharing that experience. And then the kid feels like if they've taken away a bit of knowledge, now they feel like they're a know-it-all, and then they've retained something. And now they can pass it along to their friends. Did you know that? And I've heard an 8-year-old say, did you know Leonardo da Vinci invented what became a helicopter. And I was like, drop the mic, we've done something, you know?
Yeah.
So if that helps give you the context and the difference between just a dinosaur running through an aisle, right? Interestingly enough, yesterday I was having a conversation because I guess there's a company, is it Niantic, that just did Harry Potter AR, like they were doing Pokemon.
Yeah.
Okay. And Pokemon, my posse's coming in. Good morning.
Morning.
So I was talking about you. Hold on, come say hi. This is my genius partner, who I told you was the original hacker, Jamie Dixon.
Hey, Jamie.
Hello.
So I understood why. First of all, Pokemon was the first, but Pokemon, and again, Jordan can attest to this because we even used to see the movies, have the video games. There was no depth to the characters. The characters didn't even talk, and all you had to do was catch them, right?
Right.
So going and catching something that had nostalgia and emotionally drove people from their childhood, got it. But when I look at the Harry Potter game, you can't have that same kind of just catch them. Everybody really knows Hermione, and they know Harry, and they know Dumbledore, and they know those characters. So if you don't create the narrative that emotionally drives you in using the technology, it won't have the same kind of sustainability.
Right.
You know, so
I love what you did. Looking at the site and talking to you, I love what you were doing with books. So I mean, wow, you know, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have to go to the site really to experience this, guys. Talking to the audience, talking to you, livingpopups.com, and go to is it products, I think?
Well, go to Boxcar. If you have a struggling reader, a second or third grader, someone in China, because the English is the most, it has 200 of the most common English language words. Boxcar Children is our first book out. The app is available now. And it's going in with a box set in Costco in November. But
I mean, I can see where that would really, really make a huge difference with somebody that is challenged with reading, or just get attention, just get their attention.
Well, you know, we did it again. It's not a gimmick. The characters tell you it's a reading comprehension like workbook. The characters ask you questions within the material. It is like in one way, it's the back end can share with a teacher that they got it wrong. In a classroom, most classes, okay, yes, if you live in a big city, or you live in the West Coast or the East Coast, a lot of people are more open to the fact that their classrooms are neurodiverse, okay? Mm-hmm. That there are kids that either haven't been diagnosed or are diagnosed with labels I think we all have something. I think we're all on the spectrum, and half of us haven't been. And so there's classrooms of kids that have 20 to 30 kids, and a lot of them, teachers are trying to engage them in material and trying to inspire them. And it's a hard job with kids who are all learning differently. So here's an opportunity for us we're not changing their curriculum. We're looking at let's take the books that they're already required to read. Let's empower children to want to read the book, be asked by a wingman instead of kids look up to adults like they are 3 times their size. Even me, I'm 5 feet tall, and I know my men are now still bigger than I am, but they still hear mom voice, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. So they have they totally have an internal narrative of being and society today also is that there's this huger gap of pass to fail, right?
Yeah.
So in that, children feel like if they don't do A+, they're already not doing well. And instead of you made a mistake, it's okay. Go figure, you can go back. So what we have our characters do is actually ask you multiple choice questions, You get it wrong, they give you a new definition to what that is. You get it wrong again, they might even redirect you to say, hey, go back to page 112 and see. We're not giving you the answer. We're just empowering you to reread the page that you might find the answer.
Well, it's also using it's a fun way to keep the kids engaged, right? It's fun. It's a fun way to learn. It's a
candy covered medicine.
And it's using devices that they're already using, right? That they're already conditioned to use, whether that's good or bad. That's what it is. So it makes sense to me. What do you think? Where do you think AR? Where do you think this is all going? What's your sort of vision? Like you're 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out. What is the crystal ball? What do you think this is going to look like?
Okay, well, I live right here, right now, for the most part, and I'm very appreciative to be right here, right now. And I can share that.
I mean, just from the technology, mainly from the technology.
I know. I do feel like there's going to be an evolution of it, just like, AR Kit, it started in beta 2 years ago, just about coming up. It was the summer of like 2 years ago that AR Kit came out in beta, and it's already at what 3 point. I lost track, right? We get updates all the time. Do I think that AR can be a very purposeful and useful tool? Absolutely. Do I see what we're doing something in mental health for 18 to 27-year-olds that I feel we are creating a really interesting and dynamic world to help people in a world that they feel like they don't have certain access? Absolutely. Do I think that retail, if done wisely, and I won't, we've been asked to do really interesting innovation to the mall kind of industry or the airport kind of industry. And I think if it's mindfully done, that like, how do people really feel like they will use something? They will have the opportunity to either share how they want to share or keep it private, but have an experience that feels like you got their back. And I feel like if the technology is used properly and appropriately, still fun, you can still be cool and edgy, but you can also still have grace and dignity, So if you do have those things, and then people will feel like you've helped me. So if we just we'll weed out, like we were just at a show while I was at ALA in, we were at a show at the Warner Brothers lot that AT&T put on for called Shape, and it was exposing people to like all the different kinds of technologies. And the one feedback that we kept getting was, you're the only company that's come up with something that feels purposeful. And so my hope is that people just don't keep looking at this as and there's things that you can do in entertainment, don't get me wrong. And there's things that, like, if you make something that is scalable, that is financially appropriate for a marketplace that can have mass audience, awesome, share it. But if you're just doing a thing for like just the drive of the technology, it's not going to. The technology is one of the tools in your toolkit.
Right.
So if you look at, like, we have some cool tools to use, you still have to create something of substance. That's all under the hood.
Right.
So that's why, like, partners that we've had, like Cisco and AT&T, have been delicious for us, because they understand that they have some great under the hood stuff, and we understand how to help utilize that to bring it out into the marketplace so that it becomes a B2B to B2C.
When you really have kind of merged education and technology here, or AR, I mean, that's, to me, is that how you would label the company?
I do. It's funny because, yes, I do think education is at the forefront, but I think it's fun. It's fun and entertaining. And then whether it's tourism, whether it's like education in books, or whether it's even in a TV series, how to use AR as a tool, to tell additional storytelling. There's always something mindful that is motivating us, that says a kid or an adult will want to use it. Like, we have some fun things coming up that I can't talk about.
No, but I can see, you can, there are all kinds of branding ways that you can use. For this, I love the tourism piece where you're at a monument and you have the Scottish guy pop up and tell you about where he lived. I think that was really, really, really fascinating. What do you think?
Can I speak? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, ask me your question so you don't forget.
No, I've got it written down, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Well, the interesting thing is that area has 16 sites that half of them are unmanned, and they're all from different time periods. They're from the Neolithic and the Paleolithic and the Stone Age. And he's the first guy you see pop up, but then he throws it to different characters that are part of the ensemble from different time periods, so that they can show you how they pass it off and are relevant to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's an ensemble of characters that episodically take you around these unmanned sites. We're using 5G in a rural area that I'm very excited about. There's BBC and CNN are doing a big thing on it July 22nd. But because we really did utilize all the under the hood pieces mindfully to make the support case happen, that then can make a product that people can use and actually get information about. And it's a divine area. So it wasn't just the one guy I was just sharing. It really was showing you how we took an ensemble of characters to create that. Yeah.
Well, to me, it was a great way to learn. I'm a history major, and so I really love that kind of stuff, because I think how many times you go to a place, right, and you don't get enough, right? You get the plaque or the sign that explains a little bit, but you don't get the same story that you got from him, explaining what life was like, or what. I thought that was really, really great. So what is you wanted to explain? Was there something else you wanted to explain?
Oh, no, you were going to ask a question. I just wanted to explain the characters and the ensemble bit for that, and that it's an in-app purchase that is we make it price point appropriate. I rather access many people than make something too expensive. I want to share the information and knowledge, and then make something that can be usable to many. So
we did get a question I want to ask from Eugene Frazier. Eugene asked, how do you keep your spirit high and not take others' negative energy?
That's well, thank you, Eugene. And yes, to me, I've always been motivated or have a fire under me. We started by saying yes, and if somebody says no, when I know in my heart and my gut, which I talked about earlier,
right,
when we're doing something in a way that hasn't been done before, it means that there's fear of the unknown. And and so far, everything we've done that we've proven has had the positive feedback. We just it's not just me, I'm a part of a team, and I have a beautiful team. You saw Paula in the beginning. I have Paula, I have Jamie, I have Ken, I have Sarah, I have Candy from Vietnam, who, is an incredible artist. I have Danislav from Bulgaria. It's the team that makes the whole. And I think we keep our sense of humor, and just when somebody says no, it just means, you'll be sorry later. Perseverance, a sense of humor, and a duck's back, really. Don't let them get you down, Eugene. And if you have something interesting and you want to share, I'm open to listen.
There you go. Well, Eugene, you guys connect if you need to. I happen to know Eugene, and Eugene is a wonderful soul. So I think you guys actually would appreciate each other.
Thank you.
What how can people? I know you guys are really ramping up, and you sort of in this huge growth period. What are you taking on clients in projects as they come, or?
We're trying. So, the way we negotiate our deals is we own the intellectual property. And we share revenue. So, yes, partnerships are very much welcome. And we're actually out there raising our next round of funding, because right now I left that ALA show in in Washington, and public libraries, school districts, counties,
yeah, you're going to blow up, I think.
the states, universities, we're asking for our catalog. And I know, having managed budgets and managed, episodic series from like 50 series at a time and 22 episodes at a time, we're scalable, and but we have to get we're looking at getting our first 40 books out and our first 36 cities within this year, which is possible for us. I mean, it takes us 8 to 10 weeks to turn around a book. Right. Multiple books, because we can have teams working on them. So that's where we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
And we just started a nonprofit arm too, because there are countries that financially have approached us to say, we can't afford this, but we want it for our students. So, I thought there's been people who have said, are you a nonprofit? We'll donate. And we're like, well, if you donate to a place like Haiti or a place like the Bahamas, or how about our Title I schools, really. That could be helpful. I'd like to start home first and then build out. But yeah,
we've got communities here that would really benefit from this.
Oh yeah, no, and we want to be of service. I mean, that's really it. I feel like if we make an impact, we can actually change the landscape from like having such a low illiteracy rate. And the one thing that they say is, if you can't read, I mean, we had the head of emergency pediatric medicine at one of the bigger universities. I won't mention which one in case he doesn't want to be mentioned, but say, textbooks are hard for kids to actually process the information these days. Will you close their door? That it's hard to process, and visually breaking it down. Like I said to them, well, let's come up with an ensemble of like students that they can choose who they like, feel like they learn like, because even doctors are wired differently.
Right.
I did a hackathon at Children's Hospital, and to hear doctors say they have this problem in their specific area need, and what they thought would be fun for a kid, and then what the team started to work on, and how no one was connecting the emotional quotient of the child themselves.
Yeah, somebody tried to figure that part out.
I was like, okay, hold on. I'm sponsoring this with you guys. Let's break it down here. You've come up with this is your problem. And I love that you've thrown out the world of space for a child who's 3 to go to without his mommy. But let's look at, like, now you're about to probe him. And I don't know that, like, going to space, leaving his mother, and being probed are going to work together.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I digress.
Well, we had one more comment I wanted to read, and then we're short on time, but
let's hear him.
Let's see. So I don't want to mess up her name, but she said that she was proud of you as a woman. I think that's very sweet.
Thank you.
And let's see.
Can I speak to that for a second?
You may.
Okay.
Emmanuel says great work. There you go.
Thanks. Well, I have to say I've always empowered great minds, young women, young men, and I've never had a gender issue. And I've worked with some large titled men with big names in
bigger egos.
In big industry. Well, in big industry, actually, they were always pretty lovely to me and always allowed me. I went from being called crazy to maybe she's got that zeitgeist thing to like, then there was futurist. I don't know. I think kale's out and sriracha's always in, and my kids and my ex-husband have come up with a hot sauce. So but I just, I feel like I empower smart people. And as a woman, I just have always believed, say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean, and then you'll be heard. And if anyone I see meets me with an internal, I can see their internal narrative of what they've sized me up to be. And then they see that like by all of a sudden us starting to talk, I'm more than what they thought I was.
Right.
If that makes sense. I just look at if I can be a voice for women and empower more. And, I was a part of this women's fund that started that. It was ironic because they were trying to raise funds for women founded companies, and they couldn't raise funds for women's but I was like desperately wanting to support these women who wanted to support other women. And I think they're just raising their first fund, but it's been amazing how still there's a gender inequality. So I'm aware of it. I don't try to feed into any bit of the negativity of it. I just do my thing and empower as many great like-minded women that want to persevere and sustain a great business,
Well, thank you for coming on the program today. This has been a lot of fun, and I wish you the best of luck. I think you're going to blow up. I think the product is just remarkable. I wish we, hopefully when I learn how to use this platform a little better, we can demonstrate next time, because I think that would be a lot of fun for people to kind of see it firsthand.
Do you have 20 seconds? I can show you something. I can show you something.
I don't know how well it'll translate.
Okay.
But people should go to the site. It's livingpopups.com. And thank you for joining us today. Next week on the program, we've got some great guests. We've got Robert Glazer, founder and CEO of Acceleration Partners, ranked number 2 on Glassdoor's top CEOs list. And I've got the one and only Dr. Srini Pillai. I'm probably really tearing up his name. He is one of Harvard Medical School's stars. He's a professor of psychiatry and is doing some great work about the head and the heart. And so that'll be a fascinating conversation. So join us next week. Tomorrow, we are going to enjoy friends and family on the 4th of July. I hope you do too. And Cheryl, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.